Yay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As people are starting to come in here, if you want to write in the chat where you're tuning in from, we always love to know. We always love to see it. And I want to make sure that people can talk in the chat. Let's see. There we go. Hey, Scott. Cynthia's from Dixon. We got Scott from Memphis. And we all know Scott Banbury. If y'all want to unmute, as long as y'all can just stay unmuted unless you're nervous there's gonna be some sort of interruption.
We love Scott. What's going
hmm
on, Scott? I see Dan
Dan
also.
Franco, Nashville. Thanks for coming, Dan. Kimberly, Memphis. Yeah, go ahead and call those out. I'm gonna start grabbing some things on my screen. Let's see
We got
here.
Reverend
think
Gordon
Reverend
Myers.
Gordon is here. Hi.
Mhm.
And Dr.
Nice.
Marie.
Nice. Well, while everyone gets settled in, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And this is a really important conversation today. I have some incredible humans that are here to answer questions, to tell us what's really going on in Memphis. And as a Tennessean that loves Tennessee, this topic is very important to me. And I know as Americans, we know that data centers and AI is now a part of our lives. And so we definitely know this is important to Americans as well. So what this is a podcast style webinar. This is a casual conversation. My name's Maris. I work for Tennessee Environmental Council. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Impact here, and I try to connect people to planet and people to people, right? So I started with this. This is the third episode, and these conversations, there's a wide range of who this could be, who I could be interviewing, from passionate organizations to businesses, innovative businesses, dedicated individuals tackling the state's environmental issues and the like. So, like I said, I'm Maris Macelis. TEC, or Tennessee Environmental Council, is a nonprofit, and our mission is to help people and communities improve the environment for all. Right. And we have all sorts of initiatives. We plant pollinator gardens, trees, we restore watersheds, we have litter cleanups, roundups, recycling roundups, and composting education that pretty much covers a lot of different angles. So I'll put the link for us in the chat if you want to check it out. And we just want to guide Tennesseans in making positive changes in their lives and standing up, using their voices, right? And improving the environment and supporting them in doing that. So let's go ahead and get into this, you guys. Are you guys ready? Of course we are. We've been waiting for this day. I know I have, and I'm so pumped. So let's start with introducing ourselves, your organization, the mission, and why has this data center brought you to the table? We can start with you, Sarah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having us. My name's Sarah Houston. I serve as the executive director of Protect Our Aquifer. We are based in Memphis, Tennessee, and work in the surrounding counties recently. But our whole mission is just focused on our drinking water supply. We get it from this underground aquifer, some of the purest in the country, but it is widely unmanaged. And what brought us into the XAI space and the AI space is that these big data centers need a lot of water for cooling. And that's just the case with XAI. They are currently using the aquifer through our utility. But we'll talk a little more about how they're potentially getting off the aquifer. But there's big water impacts when it comes to data centers for direct cooling. And then on the power supply side, power generation has a direct water footprint as well. So we're here to watchdog this and reduce impacts to the drinking water supply.
LaTricea, thank you.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. LaTricea Adams, proud Memphis native, founder, CEO of Young Gifted and Green. Young Gifted and Green actually used to be called Black Millennials for Flint. Our work got started almost a decade ago in the wake of the Flint water crisis, and we very quickly expanded. So we do a significant amount of work trying to engage and mobilize young people. Once upon a time, millennials used to be the youngest in the bunch, but now we engage Gen Z and now Gen Alpha to be active participants around environmental policy. We do have a national platform around federal policy engagement, and then we have a significant portfolio of programs at the local level, including my hometown of Memphis. We also do significant leadership development training, particularly for young people. And I'm saying young, relatively speaking, to ensure that we understand the tenets of democracy doesn't begin and end with voting, but it also includes shared governance so that communities, especially those frontline communities, have access to decide and determine what comes in and out of their respective communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, KeShaun.
All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. My name is KeShaun Pearson. I'm a co-founder and leader of Memphis Community Against Pollution. We started out, as many of folks on this call know, as Memphis Community Against the Pipeline. And so we started out fighting against what we believe to be one of the worst environmental racist projects in Southwest Memphis in a long time, the Byhalia Connection Pipeline fight. And we were successful as a coalition, as a community in defeating that pipeline. But in that fight, we learned about so many of the other fissures to our environmental and public health. So learning about the higher rates of cancer that exist in our community, especially breast cancer in Black women. Additionally, learning about the clay layer through the work of Protect Our Aquifer. We then decided to become a Memphis Community Against Pollution and to address all of the pollution and environmentally racist projects in Southwest Memphis. And so that led us to working to shut down sterilization services of Tennessee, who was emitting ethylene oxide into our atmosphere. And now with XAI, who has illegally and unlawfully been using methane gas turbines to put even more, excuse me, low-level smog and ozone into our air. So, and formaldehyde. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah,
Yes, we
are
will.
we?
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. So this is a little bit about their organizations and how they got connected. Guys, if you have questions, we want to give you that opportunity at the end of this conversation. So we are gonna keep things flowing, but if you're on Zoom and you have the Q&A feature, that will be the most helpful so that I can see and not get it lost in the chat. So if you can try and find that now, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A feature on Zoom and we'll get to that later. But thank you guys for being here. Yeah, let's get into that. Like XAI, it just popped up into Memphis, right? There was no warning. It was after the fact. People kind of maybe saw it, smelled it, and didn't really know what was happening until it was there. KeShaun, I know you had explained this portion in the past. If you want to jump in on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you a brief rundown as best as a son of a preacher can do. Uh, and feel free to interrupt me, LaTricea and Sarah, in case I miss anything. So, the the first thing I would say is June 5th of 2024. I was sitting around a table with some of the most brilliant people on the planet, including LaTricea, Sarah, and building out a plan for environmental justice with the City of Memphis Mayor Paul Young. At the close of that meeting, he said, I have some news, and I don't know if we're going to agree on this or not. And then he announced that the Memphis Chamber would be hosting a meeting where they would announce Elon Musk was in Memphis. Right. And so literally up until that point hadn't heard a whisper of this until the day it was announced. And our elected officials, as well as our community members, learned from the news press conference that happened 10 minutes later. And it was completely blindsiding to everybody because what we know as normal is that when large companies are looking at Memphis, when they want to pursue Memphis, we get notices in the Memphis Business Journal. There's a lot of, engagement around it. So we have an opportunity to say something. We were completely left out of this until the day it was announced. And so myself, LaTricea, and Sarah got together, penned an open letter about our concerns. We were concerned about the water. How much water would a facility of this size need? And it was somewhere around 1 million gallons a day. We were also concerned about the energy burden, right? And how our families were going to pay for the increase in power after already taken on so many increases the years before. And then for MCAP specifically, what was going to be the damage to our air pollution? How was this demand for energy going to demand even more of a connection to fossil fuels, right? And so that happened on June 5th of 2024. And from that point, it's only escalated. At no point has XAI tried to work directly with the community, right? There's been a complete lack of community
Yeah, I
engagement.
saw that one community meeting that didn't go too great.
And that's what happens when you leave folks out. That
Right.
is exactly what happens, right? That was a pent up moment because throughout this entire process, nobody has come to South Memphis and said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this, or we are doing this. We want to get your input, your feedback, because we are coming into your community. We're coming in your backyard, where your parents and your families have lived for generations, and we're
Right.
building this project that's bringing more pollution." Right? That just didn't happen.
And what is
Uh,
the difference between like private and public? I heard that around somewhere that like, well, some people they were saying that because it was private land or something that they don't have to say that this is happening. It's, what's going on with that? Do you know?
yeah. So this is the way I put it is like this. If I move next door to you, it's my house, right? I'm not obligated to wave to my neighbors when they leave, but when you enter into a neighborhood, and especially if you're bringing pollution to that neighborhood, and you're bringing in methane gas turbines that are literal jet engines, right, running 24/7, you owe the community an opportunity to be engaged. And so there if we
That's a
get to
permit. That's the
we
permit,
can, we can
right?
get to public private, but basically, what I believe is in community governance, as LaTricea was speaking on earlier. Like the people have should have the opportunity to decide
Yeah.
what comes into their communities and what doesn't. So that was first violated, right? And then it's this idea that businesses only have to communicate what they choose to, right? And when they choose to. And that is what is so anti-democratic about this, is that the people who are breathing in the pollution aren't even included in decision making.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's the number one. Go ahead, Sarah. I see you want to jump
So I was
in.
just gonna I was gonna chime in on the public-private part too, because one of the big things that we experience and then other places that are getting data centers experience is that since this is a industrially zoned area, there's no exclusion or any additional public process a data center needs to go through. They can do whatever they want pretty much on that facility. And that's just how our zoning law is currently written. Now you
Mhm.
see other communities like in Virginia and other places where they're seeing this big influx, they're changing their zoning laws to carve out more public say for data centers. So that was part of this being the first, and it's not really the first data center, but it's the first big data center. That was something that our governing regulatory body just didn't have that in the code, and it directly impacted how this whole process rolled out. And so
Exactly.
that's a big glaring thing in this data center conversation.
Yeah, and Latricia, if you want to jump in, yeah, I see.
And to add to piggyback on what Sarah just shared, it's also important to note that the actual facility where XAI is located also left a very sour taste in community's mouth, because this facility used to be Electrolux. Now at Electrolux, they actually got a pilot. They made all of these promises like many corporations do, saying that they're going to be bring jobs and boost economic development. They didn't. It literally was slave labor. And so what makes this even more egregious is the fact that because of a quote unquote loophole in our land use code, XAI pretty much was able to circumvent or bypass a typical land use process, because technically they wouldn't be doing anything significantly or substantially different than what took place with the previous owner. And then, in addition to that, the methane turbines were temporary, meaning that they weren't fixed. So there were a lot of nuances that was definitely encouraged by the Chamber of Commerce, the Memphis Chamber of Commerce, to kind of expose where some of these gaps were, which is really insidious, that someone would court this sort of pollution to go into a community that's already inundated with significant legacy pollution because this is a historically red line community.
Right, and that's the other thing. Yeah, moving into like the key players in this, right? So the first things first, just to recap, the community was not made aware that this is happening. I mean, it sounds like with the help of the city and Chamber of Commerce specifically, they were able to figure out ways to not have to tell the community. So that was just already, you've crossed the people that live here. This is historically Black and poor neighborhoods that you are just coming into. And then these turbines, which nobody really knows what those things are. So yeah, maybe people were just kind of like, I don't know what's going on over there. And, they're just waiting to see and find out. And then they're smelling it, they're tasting it, and then they're finding out about it later. And I know that it was like historical time that they built this, like 122 days. They like wanted to get it done so fast, right? So and any one of you can take this question, but it's like at that point, right? When you find out that this is happening, you have to go through all of these ways to find out who's responsible, who do we need to talk to, where did it go from there? Like, so I know the Department of Health was involved and they weren't very much help. I know that the EPA, you guys contacted them for help. They don't, it's unprecedented, right? That was a resounding message that your answer you're given. It's unprecedented. They don't know really how to move forward on that. So where does that leave the community? Where does that leave you all? Anybody's, yeah.
Yeah, I could just jump in that. One of the things that you just kind of explained and alluded to is that like there's a lot of players in this from like a regulatory perspective, and there's a lot of community members and community partners in this too. And the information was not easy to come by. So what, our core coalition did a lot of in those first 6 to 8 months is really just trying to fact find, ask the right questions, pull pieces together. And, the intention was to support communities' concerns and questions and try to get the best we can together when it comes to the facts, but also understand like where should have the health department stepped in and played their role? Where should have, and really try to outline like where did they just fail, And so that's something, like our three groups work really closely together and have for years. So we kind of had this good pre-existing relationship to like meet regularly, talk regularly, fact find who's knowing what, who's talking to who. But that's a big challenge in this data center world is it moves so fast. A lot of the stuff we're learning is like through a news article on a paywall. It's like, okay, who's
Right.
got the subscription? Da, da, da. So that's one of the challenges that like we kind of had a little pre-existing infrastructure, if you will, internally to like try to understand this stuff. But like moving forward, this is the challenge for communities continuing is just like how do we have this information and then therefore inform the community on what actions they want to take. What do you want to do with this? So it's been challenging and it continues to be that way because no one's coming with the fact sheets or with the information. We have to go seek it and we have to find it. And there's just injustice built into this whole situation.
Yeah, and yeah, think I'm so grateful for you guys, truly, and I'm grateful for the organizations that you have, right? That you're able to do this. So, I mean, there and then let's talk about the good and the bad, right? Because we hear a lot of like, well, this is economically good for Memphis. This is going to provide jobs. This is going to do all these great things, right? But then on the other side of that, there's all of the harmful pollutants that are going into the air. There's the massive water use that they need. And Memphis sits on top of an aquifer, and not many people know that. I mean, people in Tennessee may, but Tennessee is specific, or that Memphis is specifically known for this beautiful, delicious, clean water. So whoever wants to speak on that, right? The good and the bad, like let's kind of weigh those out together.
So I'll jump in because when I even think about the framing, like this, you got myths and you have the truth, right? Like you have these myths around the economic empowerment that data centers bring, period, right? And then especially this data center, because of Elon Musk, is supposed to bring so many jobs. The truth right, is that it had no real economic material benefit for the people in the city of Memphis because the majority of the people who were doing the work were contractors who were flown in or who came from Texas. Like these aren't jobs that Memphians are being able to work. We are given the most menial jobs in either janitorial or security, right? And these jobs aren't six-figure salaries. And so, it's this myth that's pervasive that says, data centers are going to do this and do that. But economically, we know that to maintain a data center, even a supercomputer of this size, is going to be a handful of folks, maybe 10 to 20 at the most. And so a lot of what we have to do is also take control of the narratives and tell the truth about what the real issues are. On top of it really not being an economic benefit, they're also not paying as much as they should be in taxes, right? They should have been charged on $12 billion of assets and only being charged on two, right? And so even the tax revenue that we're going to see is dwarfed because of the loopholes, that they've been given. And so economically, that's a myth. And the truth is that materially, we are not benefiting a great deal from this company being here. What they will pay in property taxes, which they haven't yet, what they will pay is basically what covers our police department's overtime, right? We have a $1 billion budget. They're not scratching the surface of that.
And also, how much money can be paid for the sicknesses and for the like the detriment to the communities. So, I've heard you say something on. You guys made national news on this story, and I remember you saying no price really can. There's no price that you can pay for clean air, clean water, and clean soil that we deserve. So, what are some of the things that What are the effects of the gas turbines and the water that's being taken and all that?
Yeah. So what we know about the gas that's being burned is methane. It's methane gas being burned to fuel these generators. They produce two chemicals that are extremely dangerous. Formaldehyde is a carcinogen. That just means it's known to cause cancer. That's a guarantee. The other chemical is nitrogen oxide. And nitrogen oxide is a part of what creates low-level smog. And smog is like when it's a hot day and it's hard to breathe outside, that's what smog in your body feels like, right? And so people who already have pre-existing respiratory conditions or have asthma, COPD, like a lot of our community members, and they have these conditions because of the coal ash that was burned by the Tennessee Valley Authority, because of the oil refinery at Valero, right? Because of sterilization. So they have these conditions because the industrial era ushered in this continued exploitation of our actual bodies, right? And so this is historical. I lost both of my grandmothers in their early 60s because of just how detrimental these chemicals are. And so now you have a new day, right? And a new company who's coming in and bringing even more pollution. And if Southwest Memphis specifically needs anything, it's less pollution. And there's no amount of taxes, there's no amount of anything outside of the reduction in pollution and taking care of people that is going to restore our human right to clean air, clean water, and clean soil. So for me, that's what I get frustrated on this part because equating any financial amount to human life is ridiculous. This year, right? We lost one of our community members who had COPD, and we also lost one of my aunts. And only to find out that in the last year, XAI alone has increased our peak nitrogen oxide levels by 79%,
Hmm.
right? And so, had that not happened, right, I also had to think, would our community members still be here? Like, would my family still be here? Right? If the pollution levels had not increased so drastically. And then on the flip side of that, you also again you have this propaganda where the city of Memphis mayor and these other companies are saying the pollution is negligible. You know, so
Who are some of those players in the chamber? I'm just curious. Like, is that something we could talk about? Like the
let's
people.
talk about them. Let first of all get the Ted Townsend, right, leader of the Memphis Chamber, and he sees Memphis is as a place to recruit data centers and to recruit warehouse jobs. right? These are extremely burdensome on not just the environment, but our bodies themselves. And so it's detrimental to continue to bring in corporations like this, but it's part of the plantation economy, right? And what they see is that specific Memphis and majority Black people, right, are built for this type of work, quote unquote. But they Anyway, so Ted Townsend, right, runs Memphis Chamber. Then he got Bobby White, right, his governmental affairs person who runs around and lobbies all of the government officials on projects like these. And so you run into an issue where when we are trying to push legislation that protects us, right, that reduces the pollution, you got politicians who won't even say a thing.
Right, because they're
The game that's consistently being played. This ain't the first time, right? This is the same playbook that big oil uses, right? We saw it with the pipeline fight. It's been going on since Valero, but it's the same playbook, and you got new players using it in big tech. So all in all, you have Bobby White and Ted Townsend at the Greater Memphis Chamber. They have a piece of their website dedicated to XAI, right? That's how ridiculous this is.
And they
But
rebranded their conference room. They got all the XAI, they got a whole new conference room set up that XAI funded. So when you walk into Chamber of Commerce now, it looks like their main client is
well,
XAI.
and with that, like, okay, so we're talking about the people, we're talking about the planet, we're talking about the things that, like, we would think that would matter to everybody, right? It's like this affects these people, and it affects us, and it affects our futures, right? So it's really interesting to hear that, the economics of this, like, oh yeah, like it's not different, right? Capitalism or we're money, 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 like we want more money, and but people are dying, and also we're polluting the air, and unfortunately, I hear that a lot of regulations are being taken away. So how do we move forward from this? Like, where are you guys at with this now, and these main players? I do also see some of the stuff in the chat, right? I saw Scott say the Memphis metropolitan area has been out of compliance with federal smog standards for 4 years. How does that continue to happen? Like, why aren't we concentrating on that? Why isn't that the main thing that we're concerned with? Yeah, XAI intends to build its own 1.5 to 2 gigawatt methane gas power plant in Mississippi to power its second site, further contributing to smog in Memphis metropolitan area. So, with that happening, right? And I know you have a meeting coming up. MCAP has a meeting on Thursday, and I can find that and put that in the chat too. And yeah, how are we moving forward from this? What are we doing now to get to bring all this up and make the changes that we need to?
so there's a lot happening in Memphis. If you see the news, we got the National Guard thing going on, and at the same time, you have federal regulations being broken down, and you have the EPA being essentially stripped for parts, right? And so when you don't have federal support, you have to lean into local legislation, and local power. And that's what we are doing. And so one of the things that we are doing is uh, creating our own community scientist, right? And so we are hosting community science trainings, and we have our community involved in capturing the data that we need in order to move forward legislation. We are working regionally because this is a regional issue. DeSoto County, the neighboring county in Mississippi to Memphis and Shelby County, is the only county in Mississippi that has an F grade for ozone. The only one out of the whole state,
Hmm.
right? And so this is a regional issue. And so on Thursday, we're going to reach out, and we have a convening that will happen September 18th, 5:30. Is on our website. You can sign up if you're in Mississippi or know somebody. Please invite them because we want to educate and empower folks with the information. There has been this ploy to really exploit folks without informing them with what's going on. And so we want to get ahead of that because they are planning to bring 66 methane gas turbines to South Haven, Mississippi. And South Haven, Mississippi ain't no far away place. Like I could walk there for you. The
Yeah, it's
border is
close.
right there. Like. And the other thing is that we all breathe the same air. And so we all are suffering because there have been no guardrails put in place to protect us. And so working with the folks in Mississippi is happening, but we're also continuing to educate folks in the city of Memphis. And because there is a lot of disinformation happening. And so to combat the disinformation, we have to continue to tell the truth. We got to continue to tell the truth about how bad the pollution is. We got to continue to tell the truth about what the real health detriments will be. We got to continue to tell the truth about the economic
Yes.
prosperity that we're not seeing,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
That's
so,
why we're here today. That's why we're doing
right.
this right now. Is I really wanted you guys to have a chance to tell your stories. I want people to know who you are, know who your organizations are, so that they can get in touch and then they can be at these meetings. So like each and every one of you are working, well, you're working together on this, but if you guys want to go kind of like one by one, like I know KeShaun, you've got the meetings, you're kind of bringing people together, you're educating. I know LaTricea, you're out there in DC. If you want to kind of give an update on what you Young Gifted and Green are doing, and then we can move on to Sarah and Protect Our Aquifer.
Yeah, sure. So the biggest trump at the bit that Young Gifted and Green works on is really on the intergovernmental component, and community-led accountability with our electeds. So one of the things when you mentioned earlier, about the hearing, so there was a hearing, for the air permits that were unfortunately, issued by the Shelby County Health Department. So, just to give a little bit of context, the Shelby County Health Department is a bit unique, where they have the power to actually issue air permits. That's
Mhm.
not, ubiquitous. That's not the same in all counties within the state of Tennessee. So, literally, we have local power and control to determine whether or not those permits would be issued. Now, with air permitting in general, with Shelby County, kind of goes under the radar. Typically, they just post, on their website, and then you can just send in, a written comment. Who's going to go look at the health department website? And we know government websites are not that easy to navigate. So we actually organized, community members, and with coalition to actually request and demand actually that there be a public hearing on the air permits. This set a new precedence. This was the first time, regardless of industry, that there had been a localized public hearing on an air permit. The impetus behind that is because democracy had been robbed from the people,
Come
right?
on.
There had not even been an opportunity for the people that were on our ballot that we put into office to even vote this up or down.
Wow.
And then the other part of this was it was to ensure that we didn't forfeit the power that we had. So shout out to Commissioner Brittany Thornton that carried, this particular resolution and it passed. I do want to say that despite what may have been seen in media, the health department didn't ask for this hearing. Now, after they got wind of it, after, we had some friends in media that covered this story about the resolution, then the now former director of the health department, who ran away to Baltimore City, went before county commission to say, oh, yes, I backed this. If you did, then you would have asked for this in the first place. Now, the other thing that we focus on is to never allow something like this to happen again, and we need to strengthen our local policies. One of the phrases that I used often in the beginning of this is stop saying what you can do and learn about stop talking about what you can't do. What can you do? Right.
Hmm.
And so essentially, this is bigger than just data centers. There has been legacy disenfranchisement, environmental racism for centuries, not
Come
even
on.
decades,
Come on.
at this point. And so we are working diligently to explore how do we build an entire reform around environmental policy that's inclusive of permitting, processes, that's inclusive of land use, but then also simultaneously trying to build the capacity of community members to understand the hierarchy and the dynamic of decision making. We
Hmm.
know that the history of a place like Memphis is hidden. It's not in plain sight. Like, how do decisions get made? who are all of the players just in industry, particularly those industries that bring in pollution. And so we spend a significant amount of time doing community workshops and training. I know we've done several public comment trainings where we really want to help community members not necessarily just to voice their frustration, but then also be equipped with absolute scientific facts and data to back up the very truths around what's happening in their respective community. And then the last thing I'll say, because I definitely want to hear from Sarah, this is very personal. Very akin to what KeShaun shared. My family is from 38109, both sides of my family. When my great grandparents came to Memphis in the 40s, they landed in 38109. Um, my family has been inundated with pollution ever since they got to Memphis and Shelby County. My father died in my matriarch's home in 38109, and then his mother, my last living grandmother, also died in 38109 from lung cancer. So these issues are pervasive, not just for me and KeShaun, but for a whole neighborhood of
Mhm.
individuals. So I'll stop there because I definitely want to hear from my activist friend, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yay.
much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank y'all. You can just tell like how much like brain power is in this webinar right now. I mean, just like honestly, this is just it gets really complex, but I think that with enough facts and people power, like we can do what we need to do. Like you got to always have that hope because it does get overwhelming, but we've been successful in big fights before. We're going to keep being successful. So put that out there. Um, but yeah, so, one of the questions you asked, like, what's beneficial to this? I'm not going to say, there's a lot of things going on that's beneficial, but one of the like potential opportunities and solutions is on the water side. And this has been really challenging to navigate as a coalition and with community because there is so much mistrust, rightfully so, in not only XAI, but in all of our institutions. That has been so challenging to navigate. And especially when you have a white-led organization getting what they want, and then black-led organizations are not. There's a lot of dynamics that go into that. And so we have to be very like mindful and understanding and listen to what the concerns are to really try to address all of this. And so on the water side, like KeShaun said, when we were in this meeting with Mayor Young, he said, XAI said they're going to need 1 million gallons of water a day. He said, we told them, don't try and drill a well. Community's going to fight you. True, we would fight you. Number two, MLGW has capacity. You can buy water from MLGW from the aquifer. Three, actually, we've been trying to get this recycled wastewater plant up for TVA's use. Y'all happen to be buying a building next door to that. Would you be interested in helping get that started? So the like importance of that question coming out in this closed room backdoor deal with our mayor, with our utility president, and with this private company is huge. That is a message that the community has been pushing for since POA was founded back in 2016, when TVA drilled deep wells across from their unlined coal ash ponds. It was going to suck arsenic and lead and nasty stuff down into the Memphis aquifer. And we were like, use recycled wastewater. You're right across the street. TVA was like, we don't do anything that's going to cost us money. So absolutely not. But in the rolling blackouts of December 2022, everybody that's in the TVA service area is going to remember that. Christmas, rolling blackouts across the service area. That became an extremely dangerous situation for Boxtown and Westwood and the communities in Southwest Memphis because they share a well field. So a cluster of wells, it's pumping water from the aquifer. Water goes to the industrial areas where TVA is at, where XAI is at, and it also goes to Westwood and the neighborhoods over there. So during this moment, TVA is cranking the gas plant up full throttle. They are using 7 million gallons of water a day. We got pipes busting left and right. You've got boil water notice. They're not able to send water to residents for drinking and survival. So our utility is faced with this water for power, water for people. That is an equation and a decision we do not want to see our utilities have to make. So resiliency becomes key. And that's where getting TVA off the aquifer and using our wastewater came back into fruition like 22, 23. So years of advocacy, community, we all went to MLTW board meetings. We hammer that over the head with TVA all day, every day. But then that came up in this closed room deal with XAI. So I just want to say this was years in the
Wow.
making. But then yes, XAI is going to build this thing. What the hell? So, where we're at currently is we have been watchdogging this every step of the way in the sense of what do the agreements look like? City of Memphis sold land to XAI. We did not know that was going to happen. So we had to wheel and deal and figure out what's in this contract, like, is there going to be a require? We got a newcomer coming in. Um, so then like our group was like, delay land sale. How do we make sure that number one, should it be a lease instead of a sale? That came up. And then how do we ensure that they can only build this water recycling facility on it? You can't just sell them 13 acres and like, oh, just kidding, we're doing whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
So there were some things we tried to get into that provision. So that was a whole activation this spring. Then you had the operating permit that comes from our state TDEC. So a lot of what Protect Our Aquifer does is technical allyship. We take all these big permit documents, remediation plans, geophysical stuff, all this crap, try to understand what it really says, distill it, and then help folks understand, like, you're for or against it, like, what do you want to do with it? But here's what it's saying. So at that point, I want to kind of show the difference between TDEC's public hearing process and Shelby County Health Departments, because this is really shows just how challenging the bureaucracy can just be between two entities. So TDEC has the permit to run this water reuse facility. So XA had to go through this whole process, blah, 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 all these documents. The documents looked good, honestly. Like, there's very, very little impact to surface water. They really would be getting off the aquifer if this thing comes online. TVA is written into the permit as a primary user, which is like our main goal. So, like, on paper, this thing could be a good win for Boxtown, a good win for our aquifer,
Right.
but devil's in the details. And so they weren't required to have a public hearing, but you could request. So we did a big letter. We had one-click emails, folks, requesting this hearing. TDEC agreed to the hearing. It was literally just handfuls of requests, reasoning why. And they said, yes, we'll do a virtual hearing. We'll do an in-person hearing. We're going to provide you all the information packets, all this stuff. Compare that to what LaTricea just explained with the health department. They had to get a county commission resolution. There was all this push, the media attention, public shaming. It was like, this should just be a basic protocol of your operation to host freaking public hearing.
Seriously.
So
Huh.
long story short, we held some aquifer action meetings. LaTricea and Young Gifted Green helped with a comment writing workshop. We got folks, active around the actual public hearing, and we're waiting for that permit to be finalized and some other pieces. But there's still a lot of work to do to make sure this water reuse facility happens.
Right.
So that's where we're at right now, is holding them accountable on that. When it comes to XAI number 2, we want to see a similar thing. We do not want them to use our drinking water supply to cool the supercomputer.
Right.
And then the last thing I'll say is just, elevating what LaTricea said as next steps for, what does local policy look like? And that's, we want to play a role in, shaping that, in getting support, and ultimately changing some laws so that we have more local say and better protections.
Amazing. Yeah. Wow. And I'm hoping, yeah, it's a shame that you have to can follow up to make sure that the things are going to be done that has been agreed upon. But thank you for being that security. So, and being in that space. KeShaun, I know you gave a little bit about MCAP earlier. If you want to just put anything else out there about what you guys got going on, and then we'll jump to questions.
Okay. Yep. Last thing I'll add, and just thank you to LaTricea and Sarah. So brilliant. And Memphis Community Against Pollution, we do have currently a petition against the approval of the permit for the Colossus 1 facility. And so right now, as LaTricea said, Young Gifted and Green NAACP have filed an appeal, and so we're looking for support by petition, and so it's on our Take Action page on our website www.memphiscap.org,
Put it
or
in
the
there
link
for you.
is actually now here. Thank you.
You got it. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions. Trinity Williams for LaTricea, what programs do you offer for youth empowerment, and how can one join and expand the reach for young organizers in the game in Memphis?
Yeah, so we have a program, it's a 12-month program called the Youth Environmental Justice Council. We very similar to what we do with adults. It's a 12-month training. The youth have an opportunity to engage with elected officials. They also participate in public comment as well. Now, what's unique about this is local youth. In fact, a lot of the youth come from my alma mater. Shout out to Wooddale High School. But they also make comment and regulatory recommendations at the federal level as well. We currently work in Memphis, and then we have some other cities where we have youth as well. So they also have an opportunity to collaborate and work with other youth in other parts of the country. The impetus behind that is because we want our young people to see the patterns of environmental racism, imperialism, and colonization, not just from a local perspective, but from a macro perspective. The applications for the Memphis cohort for the Youth EJ Council will actually open back up in January. And then the last thing that we do as well, where we're a little bit more quiet about it, we also provide funding to youth-led organizations at the local level. So particularly with XAI, we provide funding, for example, to Tigers Against Pollution, to Youth Minds United, where we just want to provide them resources and truly allow it to be youth led. But we know that they're still kids. They don't have any money. So we back them financially so that they can grow their advocacy platform. But just follow us on our website. You can also follow us on social media to see when that application opens if you do have youth that's interested in learning more about our program.
Awesome. And I will put some of those. I've already put some of the links in for your programs, but I will make sure to put your handles in there as well. Christine Fox said, "Do the panelists know if there is any work being done on the legislative side of things to address the issue from the perspective of corporate rights? Corporations have more rights than people, families, and community members. I'm wondering if there's any work being done to revoke corporate personhood."
I think that's a great question, Christine. Um, what I would say is that by way of protecting our communities and enforcing more community governance and engagement through the legislation that we're looking to provide, I don't necessarily know that we're taking away corporate personhood, but we are elevating community governance. And so I think that's the first wave of addressing that. But I do think, we should, I mean, Citizens United should be repealed. So,
I wanted to also add this really quickly, and I would be remiss not to uplift the Southern Environmental Law
Mr.
Center.
Austin.
Oh, I mean, like they are truly a blessing. Attorneys are expensive, so we are extremely grateful to have their pro bono services. Another thing around beating corporations, sue them, take them to court. I mean, unfortunately, capitalism has no moral compass. So sometimes you have to hit people in the pockets, and oftentimes that's to use the courts to be able to navigate these spaces, even though it may seem bleak with the current political climate that we're in. We still find it to be extremely beneficial and critical to use the courts to be able to hold these polluters, these corporate polluters accountable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Jane Jeffrey said, other than Councilwoman Cooper, I'm guessing Sutton, who are the political people who have spoken out against this facility and who have the power to vote on zoning changes?
So, I mean, I'll say this, just Representative Justin J. Pearson absolutely has been on the forefront from a political perspective with standing with community. Also, I mentioned earlier with Commissioner Brittany Thornton has also been serving as an ally. She may not be as loud on the media front, but very instrumental with helping to try to get, for example, the resolution passed for the mandatory hearing and other environmental aspects that we're working on. And then also Commissioner Erica Sugarman also has been working with community to establish a pretty robust environmental policy, which really is getting closer to what we're seeking around environmental policy, regulatory oversight reform within Memphis and Shelby County.
Perfect. And
And I
maybe
will
go ahead.
add in real quick. Uh, uh, she is short, but she is super mighty. Yolanda Cooper Sutton, Councilwoman, City of Memphis. And she has been instrumental in helping to push for environmental justice, but really just a lot of community engagement that's lacking for her district.
Yeah, thank you. And then maybe on the email out, I can get some of those from you guys when I respond, when I send this recording out. But thank you for those people to keep account of. And also, I had somebody, Jeffrey Bates he has a question. I believe it NAACP opened an appeal against the Department of Health over permit grants. Does anyone know the current status?
So both the NAACP and Young Gifted and Green, we're the I guess the one of the local um, petitioners with the appeal. Now, I won't be able to say too much because it's open litigation, but it's officially appealed. It's been submitted. Now, there is a separate thing where the NAACP filed an intent to sue. Now, Young, Gifted, and Green is not a part of the intent to sue. However, we are part of the appeal. We are being represented by the Southern Environmental Law Center, and essentially the core grievance in the appeal is around a violation of the Clean Air Act. But again, I wish that I could share a little bit more, but we know how it works when you got attorneys involved. But the appeal is still in motion, and we're hoping that additional information will be disclosed from the health department soon.
Thank you. And I just want to share also with Jeffrey Bates said that Tigers Against Pollution is a group of students at the University of Memphis that have been active with protests and meetings since April. They're linking up with Lemoyne, Owen, and Rhodes. Anyone can join them. They say, I'm old. They had a successful protest in South Haven this past Saturday, which is how I know the school is 2 miles away. So thank you for sharing that. Um, Catherine Pullman asked, my MLGW bill has gone up considerably relative to this month last year. My neighbor called to inquire and was told that there have been two recent rate increases, one from MLGW and one from TVA. Do we have any proof that XAI is related to these increases?
I can jump in this one. I'm deep in MLGW land. So yes and no. So yes, TVA or MLGW has electric rate increases the past 2 years, and we got one more year of rate increases. So your bill will continue to go up. Two, TVA has they increased their rates 2 years ago, I believe. But what you also see if you look at your bill is a fuel adjustment cost. And so that is when we are in peak demand times, like right now, where everyone wants to run their AC, everybody's using power. They put a surcharge for the gas and the coal that we depend on. So because TVA has refused to diversify in their renewable portfolio, and we are still so reliant on fossil fuels, we don't get free energy from the sun. We have to buy extra gas, and they're going to charge us even more for it. So you're going to see that forever until TVA really truly starts to diversify and we get net metering for solar. But And I won't say that we have direct proof that it is XAI related, but it is data center related. And that's because if you look at the full TVA footprint, there is a lot of data centers going in and they need a lot of power. And a big way that they're doing that is TVA has talked about small nuclear module reactors. So they're trying to bring in nuclear, and that's expensive, and they're bringing on more facilities. They're keeping coal plants on longer. So there is a direct data center cost to our bills, and we are going to continue to see that increase. Now, with XAI trying to build their own gas plant in Mississippi, they're going to skirt around TVA, and that's very problematic in a whole lot of other ways. But that means that the other data centers are really more responsible for our direct bill impacts because TVA is bending over and doing whatever they can to bring power to these new data centers. So, yeah, those are you're going to see bills, especially this summertime, like July, August, September. Those are always going to be like your heavier bills, and it's that heavy gas cost and the lack of diversity in our energy portfolio.
Right. And like specifically, I'm going to piggyback off that with green energy, right? Like, is there any talk or has anyone brought up that we could be using green energy like solar or wind to power data centers?
Oh, we've been bringing that up since the beginning. But
Right.
Yeah.
I did want to just clarify for folks who might not know who TVA is. The Tennessee
Oh,
Valley Authority is our region's power supplier across 7 states, and so we rely on them for the power. Memphis Light Gas and Water, they purchase the power from them, and then they supply it to the city of Memphis. And so what has continued to happen is we keep getting rate increases from everywhere, from everybody. So the Tennessee Valley Authority has increased their rates. MLGW passes on that hike and rate increase to us. This has been consistent at least for the last 3 to 4 years. And so partially, we've been seeing our bills go up year over year. And so this is just another example of, those peak times and how the buck is continuously passed on to us and not the corporations. And so there should be different tiers because data centers should be paying more for power than we are. And that's not happening, but it's something that we
crazy, they're not. That's crazy.
it,
Um,
it is incredibly crazy. So,
yeah,
um,
like,
so
how do we make that happen? How do we make that happen? And somebody, the next question is perfect. It says, what's the best thing community members of Memphis can do today, this week, the future to fight back? And then how can folks outside of Memphis support this community in the fight?
Whew, that's a lot. So I would say if you're in Memphis, everybody who you know, at least 5 people, should be aware of what's going on because you told them what's happening. You should be connected to Memphis Community Against Pollution, Protect Our Aquifer, and Young Gifted and Green. You should be signing up for our emails because you're only going to get the truth if you're paying attention to the truth tellers. If you pay attention to mass media and the incorrect folks who are being promoted by the Memphis Chamber, you're going to get the wrong info. And so pay attention to the right folks, share it with the people closest to you, sign the petition, and show up because we're going to have calls for people to show up to the public hearing that should be coming around the appeal. We're going to have folks show up to city council and county commission when we have legislation move forward. So prepare, learn, share.
Yeah,
But
and
you,
perfect. There's people are asking, other than money, what can we do? And it's like money's always good too. Support the organizations with your dollar. Working for a nonprofit, money is always good. It helps them do the work that they need to do. Gordon said, what resources like fact sheets, phone calls, sample letter emails can we use to share with our networks to counter propaganda being disseminated? Is that something that we have going?
yeah,
Yeah, so we do have some resources. Shout out again to the Southern Environmental Law Center for helping us to put the information together, and shout out to Black Voters Matter, who were instrumental in doing the design and the content to make sure that it was accessible for folks. So I do believe we have some of those available digitally as well. One quick thing that we didn't mention, y'all. If there are opportunities where we're doing a call for folks to come make public comment, please come. It really helps to push a vote from a local level. So one thing that we are looking at closely, we did have a win where with the environmental ordinance that was introduced by the city of Memphis from the administration around earmarking 25% of revenue from property taxes to go to the impacted communities with XAI. There was another part we fought hard for with the community advisory. So the next step is that process with establishing this community advisory is done with fidelity and ethically. So that's the next kind of oversight and accountability focus that we'll be looking at to make sure that they're not bringing on problematic folks into this, but they truly reflect the people who are in community.
Awesome. We're about to be at time, but we do have some questions. I'm okay to stay on and answer the last 6 questions if you guys have the time. You got like 5 more minutes. Nehemiah said, when we fight pollution, has anyone explored planting mass trees to minimize toxins?
Yes.
Ooh, I can.
Oh, well, go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say just from a quick standpoint. So, for a lot of the contaminated sites we have across the county, that are either in the Superfund program or TDEC's remediation program, there are the use of trees for phytoremediation, if you want to get all technical, but literally just like having trees soak up the stuff. But I think that's something that could be used even like in your own backyard. One of the things that we're trying to offer more is soil sampling. So help folks understand like what's actually in their soil. Is there a problem? Is there not? So we've been doing that mostly in the neighborhoods around the Memphis Defense Depot, where there's a long legacy pollution issue. And if there is like some heavy lead, heavy arsenic, like what would address that? Sunflowers, things like that. They can soak that stuff up to make it healthier for you to, have a garden in your backyard. So yeah, we're hoping to roll more of that out in this year and next. So, but yeah, short answer.
Trees are
There's
always
some stuff
good.
going
Trees
on,
are
but
always
KeShaun. More native plants.
Right. I was just going to echo the same thing. The idea is called phytoremediation, and so it's basically planting the right trees in the right places to help out. But what I would also just encourage is that we put the focus on the folks who really are contributing the most pollution, and it's not us. It is the corporations who are making billions of dollars, and who are emitting tons and tons of pollution per year. So it's having them reduce pollution, and
yes.
doing phytoremediation at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So planting trees is always a yes, right? But we got to get the root of the problem covered. That's always an issue, or we're band-aiding, putting things, oh, well, it's up to us to plant more trees. Well, no, why don't we do that anyway? And then also go over here where the problem is and tackle that. Catherine asked, are there any community orgs doing mitigation efforts in indoor air quality for folks in South Memphis, thinking of cheap air filters you can make with a box fan? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, so at a small scale, because it is expensive, one of our partners were Young, Gifted, and Green, the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. They provide some support for indoor air quality. That includes even with whole home assessments. So, for example, like mold assessment and remediation, lead paint, dust or lead hazard reduction as well. But that's the leading organization, as well as another organization called the Memphis and Shelby County Lead Safe Collaborative, where they do have a focus on lead remediation. They also are like trained with mold remediation as well. So they do some accessible contracting with individual residents to address some of those indoor air quality issues. But there needs to be a lot of funding earmarked for that. For example, Memphis was one of the recipients of the EPA Community Change Grant, one of the $20 million grants, and was one of the first ones to be rolled back. And so part of that money was supposed to go to indoor air quality as well as trees. So I know that was one of the questions from Nehemiah. There was actually money that was initially earmarked for that project to use urban ag as another mechanism to not just grow trees, but to grow like fruit-bearing trees as well. So hopefully, we'll try to get some of that money replenished some way or somehow. But those are some of the programs that exist with some other organizations at the local level.
Perfect. Thank you.
And let me put a little plug in for one of the programs LaTricia's group has. They do monthly canvassing with specific to like lead pipes, lead paint. But POA's partnered on that for years, and it's like one of my favorite volunteer opportunities. So I just dropped a little link in the chat. So they're going to host their September 1 this Saturday. It's from like 10:45 to 1, and it's really fun. So you should go. And also it's good work. So that's a good
Yes.
way to just
Plug
help
it.
get
Plug it.
facts to people, so.
Perfect. Yeah, get them out there. Get the people there. Anonymous says they want key players. Name all the key players. What's the best way to that those directly affected and those who want to support us can do to push back? I feel like we already named a few, and this recording is going to go out to everyone who's registered for this. But the second part, right? Those who want to support can do to push back. Like we've named lots of ways that you can get involved. All of these organizations have resources for you. Is there anything else you guys want to add to that question? We kind of answered
One
it.
thing
I mean,
I'll
I
just
would just say,
mention on,
oh, go ahead.
oh, it was real quick. So TVA, MLGW, Chamber of Commerce, and Edge Board, they work as an economic development team, and they have for years and years and years. So that is kind of like the driver of a lot of our economic development programs, aka data centers, digital delta thing. So that little foursome is something we really need to think about addressing the power dynamic and the power structure, and having them be working from a community-led perspective versus a developer-led perspective.
Right.
Yeah, that's gotta put that.
Yep, that was all I was going to say. But I
Perfect.
would also, like government side, include the City of Memphis Planning and Development and the Shelby County Health Department.
Thank you. Right. Nehemiah asked, has legal looked into the laws that govern privately established companies' practices on publicly and privately purchased land? We kind of got into that a little bit earlier.
I mean, yes, essentially, but because of the zoning laws, the by right uses, I mean, these are hard coded into legislation, and so the work that we are doing is to change that legislation or to make updates that make it more community centered.
Right. So we have to work on the back end, unfortunately. But now we're setting a precedent for future issues. Now we are setting that. And the last one is actually for Tennessee Environmental Council. They want to collaborate with us on something else. So, Molly, I'm going to put my email in the chat. And that is all for Q&A. Wow, you guys have really covered a lot. You've been through a lot. We're all sending you our energy and just our gratitude for the work that you're doing to protect the people, to protect the planet, and be on the front lines. And I'm sure everyone that was on this call got a better idea of what's really happening and who the people are that are behind it and in front of it and around it. And yeah, let's get activated, y'all. Any last words, Sarah, KeShaun, LaTricea?
I'll let Sarah and LaTricea go first.
Happy to be here. No,
Yeah.
but for real, thank y'all so much for the opportunity, the platform, and for everybody that showed up and just trying to find a way to plug in is a huge first step. So spread the word, like peer-to-peer conversations is so important, especially in this digital age and misinformation and no trust. Like conversations you have with your friends and your family matter so, so, so much. So don't feel like you just spreading the word isn't enough, because that is a incredible, incredible step forward. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And then also, Jeff, that's our CEO. He signed into Zoom on the end there. So he just wanted to be to listen in, but we caught him on the camera. So that was kind of funny. But thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I look forward to hearing about the updates and just keep fighting the good fight for the people. We love y'all.
People power.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, yes, sir. All right. Thanks, everybody.